Hello everyone, thanks for joining our webinar this morning. My name is Jack Marder, CEO of Zanacore Technologies, where we specialize in helping our business clients get the most value out of their technology investments. Today I'm going to share with you something that could literally save your business and your bank account. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's real. So stick with us today, and I'll share with you some of the ways that we've already helped many of our clients drastically reduce security risks. Honestly, I think most of you will be shocked at what I'm going to share with you. But the good news is that you'll now know about these threats and be able to protect yourself and your organization against the growing army of cyber criminals who are working day and night to steal your data and rob you blind. Now, I know that you're likely on the webinar today because you're concerned, and rightfully so, about protecting you and your company from the vast and growing number of cyber threats out there today. Whether it's ransomware like the recent CryptoLocker Trojan, bank or credit card fraud, rogue employees, and for some businesses, even regulatory actions that can be taken against you for data breaches caused by malware or even employee mistakes. Ultimately, I know you're here because you don't want to lose everything you've worked so hard to achieve. The good news is that all of this can be prevented, or at least your risks can be significantly reduced with a few simple things put into place now. And that's what we're going to talk about. Today we're going to cover the #1 security threat to your business that antivirus, firewalls, and other security protocols can't protect against. I even guarantee that every one of you has this risk in your business. We'll talk about a shocking truth about bank fraud that most businesses don't know about that could literally wipe out your bank account. Did you know that the FDIC does not protect against bank fraud? Many business owners think that their bank will protect them if a hacker siphons money out, but that's not the case. Actually, individual consumers have greater protection for the bank accounts than businesses do. We'll review why firewalls and antivirus software alone aren't enough anymore. And we'll also talk about how mobile phones and cloud applications can seriously jeopardize your organization's security and data protection, and what you need to do to protect yourself. Here I'd point out that most businesses have mobile and cloud technologies leaking into their organizations little by little without any strategic intention, and because of that, they may be exposing themselves to risk. So here's the reality. Most of you are already using cloud computing and already have employees using their own mobile devices to do their work, even if it's just email. It's a trend that's not showing any signs of slowing down. The problem is most businesses are adding these mobile elements in a haphazard way instead of being smart and strategic about it. And because of that, you may be making expensive mistakes and exposing yourself to unnecessary risks. Ultimately, the purpose of our webinar is to show you how to avoid being a sitting duck for cyber criminals. I anticipate that the main part of our presentation will probably last about 30 minutes, and we'll have time at the end to answer any of your questions. Feel free to enter any questions you have anytime during the presentation. You can type your questions in the webinar console. Jason, our technical director, will be monitoring the questions as we go along. At the end of our presentation, we'll also show you how to take advantage of a special offer we have for the webinar participants, and that is a free network security audit, which we would normally charge $995 for. And we'll also show you how to instantly download a free mobile device policy template. And shortly I'll explain why that mobile device policy is really important for your business. So make sure you hang around until the very end, and we'll talk about how you can get that for free for your organization. Even though I know we have quite a few of our own Zanacore clients on our webinar today, there's also a number of you here that we haven't met. So before we get rolling, let me very briefly introduce Zanacore and myself. We are an outsourced IT support company and work with business managers who are critically dependent on their computers to run their business efficiently. Our mission is to make our clients' networks healthy and secure and keep them that way so that they can focus on their core business rather than technology. And as for me, briefly I would share, as long as I can remember, I've always had a passion for helping people. But years ago, as an engineering student at Georgia Tech, I also found I had a passion for computers and technology. For 22 years, I worked in the corporate world in various engineering and management positions. And then in 2000, I was fortunate to have an opportunity to start my own business where I could put both my passions for technology and helping people to good use. Now, as a small business owner myself, I thrive on helping other business owners leverage technology. And over the last 15 years, my team and I have developed our own set of technology best practices, which we have put into place, and they have become our secret sauce for managing our clients' networks effectively. So now let's jump in and talk about security. Your biggest danger is complacency. I love this quote. It's from Andrew Grove, former CEO of Intel. Success breeds complacency, complacency breeds failure, and only the paranoid survive. So success in the context of our discussion today is that most of you probably have not been a victim of cybercrime yet, or if your business was compromised, the consequences weren't significant. Therefore, because of your success in not being a target, you've probably become complacent about security measures in your organization. In fact, most small business owners incorrectly think that hackers are not interested in them. But that thinking is exactly why hackers are most interested in your business. Small businesses are often complacent when it comes to security, and that makes you the easiest target. Cybercriminals are in business to make money. Very few of them actually are looking for the thrill of the challenge to break into Fort Knox. They're in business to steal data, sell it, and make money. And of course, they'll do that the easiest way possible. Your biggest challenge is, their biggest danger is your complacency. So here we go. Cybercrime is a big business, and I can't emphasize that enough. It's not just a bunch of high school kids sitting in a room trying to see what they can hack into. It's a very lucrative business, and cybercrime rings have become very sophisticated. They're well-funded, organized, and unlike other businesses, they don't have to follow the rules. The following series of slides will stress this. I'll show you several different ways that cybercrime can affect your business, and then I'll follow up with some things that you can do now to reduce your risks. In the old days, the crime business was pretty simple. You bought a gun or a knife, hid out in a dark alley, and when someone would walk by, you'd jump out and say, "Stick 'em up," and take their money. Startup costs and overhead were low, and if you didn't get caught, you'd be okay. But of course, just like any business owner, criminals started thinking, how can I grow my business? Of course, technology answered that question. Trains came along, and instead of robbing one person at a time, you could rob 200 to 300 people at a time. And robbing trains was far more lucrative than robbing individuals. The trains were crossing remote areas where there weren't organized police forces, and moreover, individuals who were wealthy enough to afford a train ticket were worth robbing. And on a train, they were all sitting in one convenient location. So let's fast forward to today. The advancements in the same technology that you and I use for good things, the criminals can leverage to make their crime more lucrative. And with the ever-increasing trend of storing financial and personal information on cloud platforms, the modern-day train robbery is now cybercrime. Think about it. If a criminal wanted to rob 100,000 people at once, they couldn't do it the old-fashioned way. But today, all that's needed is a hack into a single large platform, and they can use advanced technology to instantly rob millions. And they're doing just that, as you can tell by the increasing number of attacks that make the news every day. Remember the JP Morgan credit card hack last summer? It wasn't just one person stealing a credit card. It was one person or a small group of people who stole tens of millions, they estimate 80 million, credit cards in one fell swoop. And this was right on the heels of the Target and Home Depot attacks, where 40 million credit cards were stolen at Target and 56 million cards from Home Depot. Think about that. Never in the history of mankind has any one person or small group of people been able to rob so many so quickly and in one fell swoop. Cybercrime is a thriving and growing business. Believe it or not, you can go online right now and buy a stolen credit card. It's almost, not quite, but almost as easy as buying on Amazon.com. After the webinar, just do a Google search for credit card dumps to see what you get back in the search results. Anything you might need to steal data and rob people can be purchased. There's even videos on YouTube now telling you how to do it. You can now buy credit card details, social security numbers, card cloners, and a number of other devices and software that allow you to set up your own crime ring. This is a thriving business, folks, and it's expanding. These criminals will steal anything they can sell. Even electronic medical records have now become valuable to thieves because Everything you need to steal someone's identity is included in the first 2 pages of an EMR, and they currently sell for $50 on the black market. You might be thinking, well, I'm just a small business. I'm not a Target or JP Morgan, so nobody would want to hack us. But that's wrong. 1 in 5 small businesses falls victim to cybercrime each year, and that number is growing, according to the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Small businesses are low-hanging fruit because they don't believe they're a target, and therefore have very loose or no security systems and protocols in place. For those larger companies, they have very sophisticated security systems in place. They're not easy to hack. Therefore, if the large companies with sophisticated security is getting hacked, then getting into your business is a cakewalk, which is why you really are the bigger target than larger institutions. The prize might not be as big, but you are far easier to rob than institutions, making you a prime target. And since cyber criminals have automation tools, they can make a ton of money simply targeting a few hundred or thousand small businesses. Surprised? Half of all cyber attacks are aimed at small to mid-sized businesses. So why don't we hear more about attacks on small businesses? Well, first of all, the repercussions are not as big and don't make the national news. The media would rather focus on big stories. But secondly, most small businesses don't even know they've been hacked or don't report it like they should because they're embarrassed or afraid of the legal and reputational consequences. Think about that. If your business was hacked and your client or patient records were stolen, how much would you want to broadcast that? Legally, you're supposed to, but how many business owners might try to keep it quiet instead of reporting it and facing bad publicity and fines? The Ponemon Research Institute says the average estimated cost to a business associated with each lost or stolen data record is $201. Then multiply that by the thousands of records that are typically affected in a data breach. But that number can't possibly encompass all the costs of a data breach in an organization. If your business was hacked and sensitive data stolen, what would it cost you in the way of reputational damage or loss of clients, lawsuits from individuals, or lawsuits from non-compliance with data breach laws? What if your data was corrupted or encrypted by ransomware like we've seen with CryptoLocker? Or what about the downtime or loss of productivity? The key point here is just because you're a small business, that doesn't mean your customers' information is any less valuable to them. Now I'm going to shift gears and talk for a minute about bank fraud. FDIC does not protect you from bank fraud, and the bank is not responsible for getting your money back. This is important because things like automatic clearinghouse fraud or ACH fraud is becoming an increasingly popular way for hackers to siphon money out of bank accounts of unsuspecting victims. And criminals only need 2 pieces of information to pull it off. That's your checking account number and a bank routing number. Another common way criminals obtain information is with targeted phishing email that tricks the victims into running malicious software on their computers, which then allows the criminals to steal account passwords. I actually know of several instances where businesses have had money stolen from their business checking accounts, were not aware of it until it was too late to do anything about it. And the worst part of it is, unlike consumer accounts where your liability is limited by the FDIC or insured by the FDIC to $50, that doesn't apply to business accounts, and you may not be able to get back any stolen money. Here's a few tips that I'll jump in right now for protecting yourself against bank fraud. Our recommendations would be cancel your debit cards. They are the #1 way bank accounts get compromised, or at the very least, never use them for online purposes. Consider having a dedicated PC that you use for online banking. Don't use that PC for accessing any other websites, email, social media, or anything else. Just make that your dedicated banking PC. Consider signing up for email alerts from your bank whenever there's a withdrawal over a certain threshold. Require your signature for wire transfers. And then lastly, a good recommendation would be to have your money spread out in multiple accounts to minimize the risk. Since I told you the only thing that's necessary for ACH fraud is the checking account number and a routing number, that number is out there on every check that you write. So a lot of businesses actually maintain a separate checking account that they write checks out of and use for bill pay, and fund that account with just enough money to cover the bills and the checks they write. Let's move on to malware. It's funny, I remember back in 2003 when viruses and malware were just starting to become a problem for people, and I was amazed back then when the antivirus programs we used were protecting over 50,000 known viruses. I thought that number seemed huge. But now, today, we're seeing 82,000 new malware threats every day. Think about that. You can't just think that a simple firewall and antivirus is enough these days with the proliferation and sophistication of these attacks. Having a firewall and antivirus is like trying to stop a tank with a squirt gun. Okay, let's move on to social media and talk about the risks there. Number one threat of social media, security. Over 600,000 Facebook accounts are hacked every day, according to a New York Daily News research report. What I'm showing you here on this screen is actually a phishing email that looks very realistic, like it came from Facebook. My question is, how many of your employees might actually click on something like this and then log in with their Facebook credentials? And if it's your business Facebook page, that's all it takes for a hacker to get full access to your account. Then they can post anything they want on your site for all your followers to see. Social media threat number 2, significant loss of productivity. So what about employees using their personal social media accounts like Facebook on your business computers? According to a recent article in Forbes magazine, they estimate that 64% of employees visit non-work-related websites each day. And from the last slide, knowing that so many social media accounts are hacked each day, there's a good chance that at least one employee will log into a hacked social media account on your business computer and thereby compromise your business data. Lastly, threat number 3 for social media, bad PR. Remember this one? This guy was pretty stupid and he was caught, but that was little consolation considering the embarrassment and lost reputation for Burger King. Maybe your employees wouldn't do this, but what if they posted what they thought was a harmless joke about another employee or their boss on social media using your business PC? Or what if they sent an inappropriate email but had your company name in the email address? That could blow up real fast, and you don't need your company name tied to it. Ransomware and the increasing prevalence we're seeing of this type of malware. I love this quote. A writer once asked a literary agent, what kind of writing pays the most? Her answer, ransom notes. That's sort of what's happening in the cybercrime world. Sensitive data in the wrong hands is used to extort money. Here on this slide is a pop-up window from the CryptoLocker virus. This is where a virus or Trojan infects a machine, then starts to encrypt your data, making it completely unreadable to you. The only way that you can decrypt the data so you can access it again is to pay the criminal a ransom to get the encryption key. CryptoLocker is a common ransomware that you've probably heard about in the news. I personally know of several instances where this has happened on business computers. Okay, so now let's move on to cloud apps. You know, there are many applications available now to make it easy for you to sync your data from your computers to the cloud. Most of you are familiar with common ones like Dropbox, Google Drive, SkyDrive, and the list goes on. These cloud apps, if they're used strategically, can be very helpful in making data available from anywhere on mobile phones, iPads, etc. The problem is that you may have employees syncing your business data from their computers to the cloud applications without you even knowing it. For example, an employee might need to share some files with a vendor or a subcontractor, and they put it out on a shared Dropbox account. All the while, you're not even aware that your data is out there. And the kicker is that all of these cloud sites are susceptible to hacking. The example here on the right is a breach that occurred on a common Dropbox site a couple years ago. If the passwords get hacked, your data is up for grabs. And unfortunately, you can't completely control the data that's not physically on your premise. And we'll switch gears once again, talk about mobile computing. A couple questions for you. How many of you have mobile phones? That's a silly question, because I'm sure it's probably every one of you. How many of you use them to access your company email? What about your employees? Did they use their personal phones to access business email and other data? That answer is probably yes in most cases. The next frontier for cybercrime is mobile computing. Today, there are more mobile devices than desktop computers, and of course, that's where we will see the next generation of malware threats. How many of you have good passwords on your phones? Do you know if your employees' mobile devices are password protected at all before they access your data? So what happens if your data on a rogue mobile device or stolen device gets into the wrong hands? Do you have a remote kill switch to wipe a mobile device if it's lost or stolen? Mobile computing dangers on the rise. This is interesting. If a device is lost or stolen and it contains protected information that was not encrypted, you may have violated a Georgia data breach law, and the fines can be quite steep. So in Georgia, protected information is defined as a person's name in combination with 2 or more elements of a driver's license, social security number, credit or debit card numbers, or login passwords and access codes. Here on the right is a recent story of a Georgia government health agency where an employee had a laptop stolen from his vehicle while attending a conference in Clayton County. Unfortunately, none of the data was encrypted, and more than 3,000 personal records of patients were stolen. What if that happened to you, but it was your customer or other confidential data on the stolen device? Of course, medical and law offices are concerned about protected health information. Retailers perhaps keep social security numbers on contracts. CPAs have a lot of financial information and records for their clients. But even as an employer, you store protected information on each one of your employees, which could be deemed as a data breach violation if the device or data was stolen and not encrypted. By the way, if stolen data is stored on an encrypted format on hard drives, then it's not considered a reportable data breach by state law. The problem is, I would guess that less than 5% of small business computers encrypt their data. So the last major threat we'll cover is spam, mostly in the form of phishing email. Here's a quote from a well-renowned security expert, Brian Krebs. Spam remains the single biggest driver of big breaches today. If we look at some of the biggest data breaches in recent memory, like JP Morgan and Target, they all began with poisoned email. Most often this happens when people receive a very realistic-looking phishing email that lures them into clicking a link to a website that installs malicious software on their computer or lures them into personal information or passwords. It's scary to me to think that the single biggest cause of security breaches today is people being duped into doing something harmful, and we really can't use technology to completely prevent that. So how do you protect yourself? At this point, I hope I've made a believer out of you that complacency is the greatest danger and risk for your business. Don't for a minute think that because you're a small business and haven't been hacked yet, that you're protected. It's what you don't know that will still hurt you. So what do you do? Fortunately, there's numerous things that you can do, and I'm going to share 7 of the one I think are some of the most important steps that you can take. First of all, enforce password policy. It's crazy to me, but I seem to get more resistance about using strong passwords than anything else I recommend to my clients. But strong passwords are your first line of defense for securing your data. What would you think about a heavily fortified building with strong walls, but only a simple skeleton key was needed to unlock a huge iron gate? That would be insane. So why do so many people think they can protect valuable data with a simple password? I even had a client not long ago that we discovered was using their password was their last 4 digits of social security number. A simple 4-digit password takes milliseconds to crack with a common password cracking tool, where a strong 8-character password would probably take days to hack, and most would-be criminals would give up long before then and move on to something easier. The point is, you need to force strong passwords in your organization that are difficult to hack. Here's 6 more steps. I don't have slides for them, so you might want to just write these few suggestions down. Number 1, regarding passwords, teach employees how to create a good password or a passphrase. Our suggestion to our clients is just put 2 words together using upper and lower case and a number and a symbol. For example, it's easy as blue and tomato and a number. So blue tomato 7, where you have a capital B and a capital T, is a strong password. It's not hard, and it's really easy to remember. Second suggestion about passwords, don't use the same password for many different accounts. A lot of people do that, but it greatly increases your risk if your password is stolen. Third, use a password saving tool. At Zanacore, we use LastPass, which is free for individual users, and then we also have an enterprise version that allows us to share login sites among multiple users, but yet we all maintain different passwords. It makes it a lot easier to maintain good, strong passwords. Number 4, change your passwords on a regular basis. It's hard to imagine not using a password tool. Changing your passwords and having different passwords for everything you log in on, that would be monumental. But if you use a good password saving tool, this becomes a much easier thing to do. Number 5, never write down passwords on paper and don't save them in a folder on your server. We've seen that several times with our own clients. Not a smart thing to do. Number 6, never allow employees to share passwords for each other. That may seem like not a big deal, but for legal reasons and litigation purposes, if you ever get into a problem with an employee, it can be a big problem for you if that employee's password was known by other employees. Okay, so enough on passwords. The second big protective measure that we recommend for you to have in place is backup. Backup, backup. If your data ever gets compromised, encrypted, maliciously deleted, or accidentally deleted, at least you have a way to get it back. And make sure that your backups are tested periodically by your vendor. That's something with prospects that we talk to, they rarely have happen. If you're one of our NetGuard clients, we're already doing that for you. Employee Education and Acceptable Use Policy, or AUP. You need to have management buy-in on taking security seriously, or it won't work in the rest of your organization. Train your employees about company policies and the risk with mobile devices. Define what employees are allowed to do and what they're prohibited from doing with business data and company computers. Teach them what phishing schemes look like in email messages so they can avoid unknowingly becoming a victim. We suggest that you control websites that employees can access. Even though you have an acceptable use policy, you still need to use technology tools to restrict social networking, web email, in addition to the obvious, inappropriate, and known malicious websites. There are software and hardware tools available to you to help you do this. And then use a good enterprise-class firewall, or we call it a UTM, for Unified Threat Management. These devices should also be configured to help protect from external internet hacks, and many of the good ones can also control website access, spam filtering, virus filtering, and give you good reporting on what employees are doing in their web surfing activities. The next step, lock down user privileges on workstations. Frequently I see where managers or even all employees have local administrative access on their computers. That's dangerous, since a virus running on a computer has the same privileges as the logged-in user account. You should normally do your work with a restricted user account. It's not an administrator. And then when you need to do something administrative like installing new programs, then and only then log in with your administrator account. And the last big suggestion that I would make for you is to implement a mobile device policy in your company. Have a written policy which spells out any restrictions and rules for employees using their personal mobile devices to access your business data. This is especially important if employees are using their own devices and their kids are playing with them, their smartphones and iPods at home. Those devices should be locked down with a good password, and you should enforce that. They should be configured to allow them to be wiped, where you can wipe all the data off remotely if the device is ever lost or stolen. And then you need to educate your employees on mobile device management best practices. So all that would be included in a mobile device policy that you would put together for your company. And shortly, as I promised, at the end of the webinar, I'll show you how to download a free copy of a device template that you can use as a starting point to develop your own mobile device policy. The bottom line, you need to get serious about protecting your company against cybercrime. But what does that look like? We recommend a 3-step overall approach to protecting your organization. First, start with a threat assessment. What's lacking in your security right now? How are employees using company-owned devices? What third-party cloud apps are you using? Are your systems backed up, and are you testing the backups? Where are you exposed to risk, and whose job is it to make sure the network is protected? And how do you know what they're doing? So ask yourself these questions. If your business is like most businesses, you know that there's pieces missing which need to be addressed. After you do the security assessment, put together the action plan. Based on what you've discovered, put together the plan of what to do next to ensure the system's data and operation are secure from theft and compromise. And then the third step is an ongoing maintenance program. You definitely don't want to take a set and forget it approach for your security, because your attackers aren't. For our current NetGuard clients, we're already doing these 3 steps on an ongoing basis. However, for those of you who are not already clients of ours, the good news is that we'll offer the first step for you free. At no cost or obligation, we'll come to your office and conduct a threat assessment. We'll access your servers and backup security system to look for weaknesses and make sure that they're set up and configured properly. We run a 37-point security scan on your network, including password and policies and security checks. We'll evaluate your firewall and antivirus system and also perform external vulnerability tests from the internet. I do need to say, though, regarding the free net assessment that we're offering, I would love to offer this to everyone on the call today, but the reality is I only have so many hours in a day, so I can only extend that offer to 4 companies. Therefore, please only sign up for this if you're truly and genuinely serious about being more strategic with your technology. Don't sign up if you're just mildly curious. I also want you to know that this is not a heavy sales pressure to buy anything or to work with us. Now, of course, some of you may decide to want to work with us, but that would be your decision. All I want to do is to provide you with some valuable information, answer your questions, and show you some ways to be smarter and more strategic about your IT investment. For most of you, we'll probably uncover some big risks that you're exposing yourself to that you might not even be aware of. And finally, there is an application process for this consultation, and that's because I want to make sure I can help you. We'll have a phone interview to get information about you and your organization before we schedule that first meeting to help me prepare for the time together and make it as productive as possible. In addition to the free threat assessment, we are also giving everyone on the webinar today a copy of our mobile device policy template, which you can use to create a customized policy for your own company. This is one area where we see most small businesses fall short. You need to get the template, customize it, and then enforce it in your company. Okay, so to request the mobile device template or to sign up for the free security assessment, just browse to this page on our website. Once you submit the form, you can instantly download the mobile device template. It's the same form for the template and the assessment, but there's a checkbox. If you want the threat assessment offer, you can just check that box as well.